Counter-terror police take over Ann Widdecombe death investigation. As new evidence emerges why counter-terror police have taken over the Ann Widdecombe murder investigation. The investigation into the suspected murder of former Conservative minister and Reform UK politician Ann Widdecombe has undergone a dramatic escalation after counter-terrorism officers assumed control of the case. British authorities have stressed that several possible motives remain under investigation. The involvement of specialist counter-terrorism police does not, by itself, prove that Widdecombe was killed in a terrorist attack. However, the decision, combined with the rearrest of the principal suspect under terrorism legislation, shows that investigators have uncovered information serious enough to require national security expertise. Ann Widdecombe, 78, was found dead with serious injuries at her home near Haytor, on Dartmoor, Devon, on Thursday, the 9th of July 2026. Police believe she was attacked the previous day. A murder investigation was subsequently launched. The case was initially led by Devon and Cornwall Police, which said as recently as Sunday that investigators had found no evidence indicating a political or terrorist motive. That position changed sharply on Monday. Why have counter-terror police taken over? Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood confirmed that counter-terrorism officers were now leading the investigation following the discovery of what she described as new information and evidence. Lawrence Taylor, the head of National Counter-Terrorism Policing, said specialist officers were building upon the work already completed by Devon and Cornwall Police. Investigators are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation behind the attack. The most significant publicly confirmed development concerns the 28-year-old man arrested in Rotherham, South Yorkshire. The suspect was initially detained on suspicion of murder. He has since been rearrested under terrorism legislation on suspicion of the commission, preparation, or instigation of acts of terrorism. That change is crucial. A conventional murder arrest allows officers to investigate whether a suspect unlawfully killed another person. An arrest under terrorism legislation indicates that investigators are also examining whether the alleged act may have been intended to advance a political, religious, racial, or ideological cause, or to intimidate the public or influence government. It does not establish guilt, nor does it confirm that terrorism was the final motive. The suspect has not been convicted, and the precise evidence prompting the escalation has not been disclosed. However, police would not normally make such a change without an evidential or intelligence basis capable of supporting the new grounds for arrest. What new evidence has been found? Authorities have deliberately declined to reveal the nature of the new evidence. This may be because disclosure could alert other individuals, compromise searches, expose intelligence methods, or prejudice any future criminal proceedings. Several broad possibilities could explain the involvement of counterterrorism officers, although none should be treated as confirmed. Investigators may have recovered material from electronic devices, communications, or online accounts suggesting ideological intent. They may have discovered evidence indicating that Widdecombe was selected because of her political identity or public statements. Officers could also be investigating connections between the suspect and another person, network, or extremist movement. Another possibility is that searches conducted following the arrest uncovered written material, search histories, manifestos, weapons-related evidence, or communications requiring specialist analysis. There could also be intelligence suggesting planning beyond the immediate killing, including threats against other public figures or locations. These remain possible investigative scenarios, not established facts. Police have only confirmed that new information and evidence caused counter-terrorism policing to assume leadership of the inquiry. The sudden shift in the police position. The escalation is particularly striking because Devon and Cornwall Police had previously said there was no information suggesting terrorism or a political motive. On Saturday, officers arrested the 28-year-old man at an address in Rotherham. Police said at that stage that the suspect was a white British national, and that the killing was not believed to be related to terrorism. On Sunday, police again stated that they had found no evidence of political motivation. Officers said they were not looking for anyone else in connection with the suspected murder and warned against speculation. By Monday, that assessment had changed sufficiently for the National Counter-Terrorism Network to take control. This does not necessarily mean the earlier statements were misleading. Criminal investigations evolve rapidly. Initial assessments are based on the evidence available at the time. Arrests, forensic examinations, and searches can produce substantial new information within hours. The change suggests that important evidence may have emerged after the Rotherham arrest, or during subsequent searches and questioning. What is known about Widdecombe's death? Widdecombe was discovered at her home in rural Devon after suffering serious injuries. Reports indicate that investigators believe the fatal attack occurred on Wednesday, the 8th of July, before she missed a scheduled television appearance. A 26-year-old man was initially arrested in Newton Abbot on suspicion of murder. He was later released and ruled out of the investigation. Police subsequently arrested the 28-year-old suspect more than 200 miles away in Rotherham. The distance between the suspect's home and Widdecombe's property is likely to form an important part of the investigation. Detectives will need to determine why the suspect allegedly traveled from South Yorkshire to Devon, whether Widdecombe was specifically targeted, how her address may have been identified, and whether there was any prior connection between them. Travel records, vehicle movements, automatic number plate recognition data, CCTV, telephone records, and digital communications could all help reconstruct the events leading to the killing. Was Ann Widdecombe targeted because of her politics? That is now one of the central unanswered questions. Widdecombe was a highly recognizable and outspoken political figure. She served as a Conservative MP between 1987 and 2010, held ministerial positions under John Major, and later returned to elected politics as a Brexit Party MEP. She subsequently became associated with Reform UK and remained a prominent commentator on immigration, crime, religion, and social policy. Her views attracted both devoted supporters and fierce critics. But political prominence alone does not prove a political motive. Investigators must establish whether the suspected attacker chose Widdecombe because of her political positions, whether another ideological grievance was involved, or whether the crime arose from circumstances unrelated to her public life. Counter-terrorism officers are particularly well equipped to answer those questions. They have specialist capabilities in extremist ideology, digital forensics, intelligence assessment, international links, and the examination of communications involving potential threats to public figures. Their involvement may therefore reflect both the possible motive and the complexity of the evidence. Does counter-terrorism involvement confirm a terror attack? No. The presence of counter-terrorism police means investigators are examining a potential terrorist dimension. It does not mean the killing has definitively been declared an act of terrorism. Specialist counter-terrorism units can become involved whenever an attack may have an ideological, political, or national security connection. They may later conclude that the evidence does not meet the legal definition of terrorism. The current position is that multiple lines of inquiry remain active. The rearrest under terrorism legislation allows officers to investigate the suspected ideological or political dimension using the relevant legal framework and specialist powers. The ultimate charging decision will depend on the evidence presented to prosecutors. Possible outcomes could include charges under terrorism legislation, an ordinary murder charge without a terrorism element, a combination of offenses, or no charge if the evidential threshold is not met. Political reaction and security concerns. Widdecombe's death has prompted tributes from across British politics and renewed concern over the security of elected representatives and other prominent political figures. Britain has experienced 2 politically or ideologically motivated murders of serving MPs in the past decade. Labour MP Joe Cox was murdered in 2016 by a far-right extremist, while Conservative MP Sir David Amess was killed in 2021 by an attacker inspired by Islamic State. Widdecombe was no longer an MP, but she retained a highly visible national profile. Reform UK is reportedly reviewing security arrangements for senior figures. Political leaders have also urged the public to avoid unverified claims while the investigation continues. That restraint is important. Speculation about the suspect's ideology, associates, or background could misidentify innocent people, interfere with police work, or risk prejudicing future court proceedings. What happens next? Counter-terrorism policing Southeast will lead the inquiry with support from Devon and Cornwall Police and other specialist agencies. Investigators are likely to focus on the suspect's movements, communications, digital devices, financial transactions, and possible ideological influences. They may also examine whether anyone assisted with planning, transport, surveillance, or the acquisition of equipment. Police will attempt to establish whether Widdecombe was selected in advance and whether the alleged attack was connected to any broader threat. Forensic evidence from her property and any vehicle linked to the suspect will also be central. Detectives will compare physical evidence with CCTV, mobile phone location data, and witness accounts to build a precise timeline. The authorities may seek additional detention time, while specialist questioning and evidence recovery continue. Prosecutors will then determine whether there is sufficient admissible evidence to bring charges. The central question remains unanswered. Counter-terrorism police have taken over because investigators say new evidence has changed the nature of the case. The rearrest of the principal suspect under terrorism legislation indicates that police are now examining whether Widdecombe's killing involved ideological preparation or motivation, but the public has not been told what that evidence is, and officers have not confirmed a specific terrorist ideology or organization. The most responsible conclusion is therefore limited but significant. Detectives have discovered enough to treat terrorism as a credible line of inquiry, but not enough has been made public to establish why Widdecombe was allegedly targeted. Until police, prosecutors, or a court disclose further evidence, claims about the precise motive remain speculation. What began as a regional murder investigation has now become a national counter-terrorism operation, and one whose findings could have profound implications for political security in Britain.